Good Sunday morning, and thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. I'm Ruben Villarreal. The legal battle continues in the Fourth Court of Appeals for the Laredo City Council District 2 seat. Back in February, visiting Judge Susan Reed ruled that Ricardo Rangel won the 2022 election for the District 2 race. Attorneys for Daisy Campos Rodriguez filed an appeal in the case. Earlier this month, Campos' team filed an 84-page response in which her attorneys state Rangel did not win, but tied with Campos based on the findings of the January trial and, quote, necessitates a new election. Well, her attorneys asked the appeals court to, quote, again, reverse the trial court's judgment and possibly order the city of Laredo to order a new election. In a statement, KGNS reached out to Rangel's attorney for a response. They say in part, Ricardo Rangel will confirm to the appellate court that he legally won the Laredo City Council District 2 election, that there is no reason for a new election, and that he should be allowed to take office immediately as the candidate chosen by the legal voters in District 2. And that's where we begin this morning. Before we dive in, let me introduce our panel. We have KGNS News Director and former Webb County Commissioner Jerry Garza. We've got KGNS News political contributor Sergio Mora.
Morning.
We have KGNS News anchor Mindy Caso. Good morning, to everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
Well, who wants to dive in first? This is just drama times 10. It seems to continue.
Yeah, this is like the days of our lives, right? You know, it sands through the hourglass. It just seems this thing doesn't stop. Look, I think we've all spoken and we've all said, look, let's just kind of let the legal process run its course and kind of ensure ourselves that everything is followed to the letter of the law. The problem with following the legal process is that it takes forever. Yeah. And even though they're trying to expedite this and move this as quickly as they can, look, this is still hovering over City Council. It will continue to hover over City Council until something is decided. And so I think if we continue to look at, all right, who was eligible, who was not eligible, and take one away and add this one there, and now you're up one and now you're down one. I think that argument will persist over and over. So it may not be a bad idea because of how close things are. Let's just call a new election. We know what to keep our eyes out for. We know what to look for. We know what to kind of prevent against. And you know, here's your mulligan. Let's do it over.
I thought that was going to be like the original, that was the default ending to these things, is a new election. But I mean, I went ahead and I perused the legal document that was filed by the Rangel, by the Campos campaign, and this is what sticks out to me. Number one, they went ahead and on top of their attorney Roberto Bali hired Ray and Wood law firm out of Austin, which is like an iconic, extremely expensive elections law firm that is obviously taking the lead on this. And number two, they're saying, you know what? They erred in using the results from election night. They should have used the results from the recount because votes went missing and Mr. Castillo doesn't have the expertise. And basically their argument is, if we use the election night, if we use the recount totals, even though they found X amount of people voted illegally for Ms. Campos, they were not enough to give Mr. Rangel the victory. They actually tied, so we need a new election. So, I mean, what it's saying is basically the Campos camp is saying, yes, there were a bunch of illegal votes cast for me, but there weren't enough. Okay. But they weren't enough to give Richie Rangel the victory. We actually tied, so new election. So what's going on is that they are really delving into technicalities.
Well, but the original list, and I think, Mindy, you can attest to this, there was, what, 51?
There's 51 alleged illegal votes.
So
they weren't considered.
That weren't considered.
Yeah, because of time, because of how quickly they needed to expedite the process to get it to the Fourth Court of Appeals. I think everybody pretty much knew it was going to go to the Fourth Court of Appeals. They only brought in to testify on the bench in front of Judge Susan Reed how many was it, 17 or so. So they still have plenty more that they can bring up and put on the stand. But that's exactly what stood out to me too, Sergio. They're not disclaiming the fact that these people voted illegally. I mean, they're actually admitting that they did. But hey, there wasn't that many. Or,
look, and the only ones who are going to win here are the lawyers.
Oh,
like,
because
the only ones who are winning here are the lawyers, because at the end of the day, the lawyer is going to make the argument that is in the best interest of their client, right?
Well, yeah.
And they're all going to find votes. They're all going to make these arguments that to the average person is like, all right, well, that kind of makes sense. And so I think you're going to bog this down in court proceedings for longer than you wanted, and who then ends up really losing here? We already know who wins, right? The lawyers win, because they're the ones who are getting paid some big bucks. Who's losing here is the electorate, who does not know, and the electorate always ends up losing, right? Because they don't know if the person in office is the duly elected individual who should be there, or if maybe the one who should be elected is sitting on the sidelines. In the meantime, all these decisions are being made, and look, that cloud is going to hover over that seat and over city council until something happens. The best way to do it is say, hey, look, let's just redo this one. We know what we're looking out for. I think people will be on heightened alert, and so people who are going to come out to vote, and I think people are also going to be afraid of doing what people were doing is voting illegally.
Well, what does that do for
the criminal charges?
Right. That's still
that's
a
another
completely
investigation,
separate
yeah.
investigation.
That's still there, though.
That's my only thing about calling for a new election. How do you know it's going to be, done again? I mean, the same people come out and vote. Have they changed their address? There could be others, and are we going to just continue investigating and finding alleged illegal
There's
votes?
a trust factor here. How many people are you going to get out to vote again, knowing that this has already happened? Yeah, you're saying we're vigilant now, but how many people are going to say at the same time, I'm not going to go? What for?
You are very correct in that these special elections, the turnout just drops dramatically. And when turnout drops dramatically, it favors machine politics, it favors cañoneros, it favors those kind of operations instead of the will of the general population.
But that's already operating in South Laredo.
But the thing is, Jerry, is that this is in bad faith, in that the argument is like, okay, yeah, we tried to cheat and we didn't cheat enough, so we want to redo. And I mean, and another thing is like this, like bringing on Roberto Valle through everything, and then hiring this. I mean, the law firm in Austin's got to cost in the tens of thousands of dollars as every minute clicks by, and you're like, why is the extreme desperation to hold on to a city council seat?
Exactly.
In that, like look at what's going on here in terms of what are these council members getting out of this to be able to drop hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to
the
keep
desperation.
the seat, and that it shouldn't be about that,
And look, I don't think the election is or new election is the best. I think it's probably in the best interest, because look, do you want really a city council seat to be determined by a judge? I mean, is that what we want? Is that what we want? Is that what we were? But again,
by the numbers of votes, throw out the people who voted
But
illegally.
if you start playing devil's advocate, even the votes that Judge Reed threw out, those have not been scrutinized. Those were her determination. The fourth court hasn't come back and say, you know what, you're no, Judge Reed, you're right. Those were, we haven't even gotten to that point yet.
Ultimately, it is going to go down to the fourth court really examining the arguments, and there's some very detailed and complex arguments being made into like the competency of the elections administrator, what happened during the recount. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. But bottom line,
and it becomes about all that and not the voters.
But bottom line is, one side tried to cheat, got caught, and they're still going to try through sheer force and hiring the best attorneys. They're going to try to, even though the public knows that they cheated, they're still going to go and try to keep it.
And they're not discrediting that.
They're not discounting that.
Yeah, they're just saying, well, there weren't enough of them.
Despite that, we're still.
Despite that,
we still want that person in office, even though.
We need to get rid of that kind of influence out of city council, and I think that we've come a long way, but that one is just the sore spot that,
It
that
is.
just doesn't get resolved.
You know, and you hope that we've learned so much from this that in 2 years, when we do have city council elections again, or really any elections for that matter, that this will hopefully not be an issue. And we've learned our lessons from
Right.
what could happen if you.
Right. And I think a bigger message also, or another impactful message will be once we hear back from the criminal side of things, because that penalizes the person who alleged cheated, as opposed to the civil penalizing the person who they allegedly cheated for. So this one is going to affect them.
And
So
I think
hopefully
everyone
that
agrees.
message.
I think everyone agrees. If someone did something wrong, they need to be punished.